up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Garage Strength Podcast. Here with Earl Kunkel. What jersey are you wearing?
I got my Jokic one on today.
So
I believe I have tickets to go watch in January because the 2025 season schedule was out.
Yeah.
Denver and Dallas play, and I'm gonna go just fly into Dallas to watch. I don't know who I'm gonna root for yet, though.
I wanted to wait. Who plays for Dallas?
The Luka.
Okay. Wait, where's he from?
I think he's
Croatian?
Slovenian, maybe. I don't know. I'm not that into it. I just root for the good players. My brother always jokes I like all the Europeans because I wear like my Giannis jersey. Like I only have one American jersey, and it's Chet Holmgren. Like other than that, like it's all.
I don't even know who that is.
Chet's like a.
Was he on the Olympic team?
No.
Oh.
I have a Wemby jersey. Like
the longest
I should have got a SGA one because he's from Canada.
I think the longest I've ever watched a basketball game was I watched the Serbia versus the U.S. basketball game.
Yeah.
It was unbelievably entertaining.
They're so athletic, aren't they?
Dude, I was watching it with Sam, and we might have even talked about this, I think, on the last podcast. But I was like, dude, this is crazy. This is
Were you in the arena watching them?
No, because it was like 4 hours away.
Okay.
We were in a bar playing beer pong, and I was watching it. And
so you had your first experience watching basketball, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I was at the Sixers game when Charles Barkley got his jersey retired.
Oh, nice.
And Allen Iverson was still playing. But I want to say I left at maybe I watched the whole game. I don't remember anything. Like, dude, because I never comprehended. I know the game is scoring baskets.
Yeah.
But like, I never got into it. I never had an interest.
Oh, it's so exciting.
For me, it was like, it was always during wrestling season too. So it was like,
I think that's like an oddity about me. Like my two favorite sports to spectate is wrestling and basketball.
Yeah. That
and like growing up, like, especially in Pennsylvania, like that's opposite.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't mix for some reason.
No, you either play basketball or you wrestle.
Nah, I love watching basketball.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's cool about both those sports is you have to be fast in different ways.
Correct.
Speed in different ways.
100%.
And just so you know, if you're listening to this podcast, Garage Strength Podcast, you should like, subscribe, whatever listening platform you're on.
So
give us 5-star reviews.
What's the platform that we post on?
We post on a lot of them. Like we're on like Spotify and like.
Do you remember the name of the other one?
I think it's like the Grit Network.
Oh, that is it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. That was not
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. Now it's all coming back to me.
Yeah.
I'm glad
that was years ago too.
Dude, I think it was like 2 years ago.
How long have we actually been doing this?
It's got to be like 2.5 years.
See, for some reason it feels
Maybe
longer,
even
but it
3.
may be that short.
No, it might even be 3.
Yeah.
This fall. Honestly.
Yeah, we used to do it out there in the office.
It might be
the
3.
other office, the communal office, the open space office. I would brand it, right? What is that? Open concept?
Open concept in this environment does not work.
Yeah.
I mean, it works. Clearly it works, but like it also doesn't work.
We need to talk about speed and how you can be fast in the open field, not in the open concept office. They're gonna stop listening.
Okay, so that immediately I think has to be the first discussion is like when I think about speed is like how big of a field or playing space are they in, the athlete? Is it, and then are they playing with a piece of equipment or no? So it's like you have a football player versus a basketball player versus a field hockey player. They're all playing on different size fields and they all have one has pads, one arguably has a little bit of pads but a stick, and then one has a very small court relative to the other two with a ball. And I think like the way that even you just pitched that, where it's like being fast in the open field is like a key concept. And I think that one of the biggest downfalls of sports specificity and like the sports specific realm is we only see things through the exact competitive nature of that sport. So like you would see a basketball player and they'd be like, oh well, they're on an what is it, 88-foot?
96 maybe,
Yeah,
something like
something
that.
like
It's not
that.
overly large.
Right. So they're never gonna
And
reach.
most of the games played within sort of a 30 feet away from the basket, 23 feet away. Like,
right. So my argument would be you would never think that doing something at max velocity would pay off because they'll never get there. But that's where the downfall of sports specificity comes into play, is that like there's evidence that max velocity can improve your acceleration. So then it's like in the realm of speed, it's like, okay, well, how much of max velocity work do we need to just increase acceleration for a basketball player versus a football player?
yeah, so I think of basketball, and I know within the GS system, like there's 3 ways we look at speed, right? It's change of direction, acceleration, and max speed or top end speed,
Yep.
right? And you were talking about basketball, and some people may be like 96 feet, like you're never getting up to max speed. Games played towards the hoop, it's all change of direction and acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
All right, like sold on it. But what I think I was hearing from you is it doesn't mean we don't train max speed. Like it's a component we would use to help develop the other 2.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
All right.
And knowing what that, like a good example would be, Dan Paff talks about this and he's a sprint coach. He coached Donovan Bailey, and he's worked with guys in the NFL, like teams, NFL teams. And he'll even say like, look, you might have a team that, let's say that they have great acceleration and it's in season. And I was just thinking about this with a basketball player. Let's say their dose is they're having 2 to 3 games a week. Okay, well, they're getting a lot of speed work from that. But you could note that as a team, they look slightly slower, fatigued or something. Well, then it's like, all right, well, if we just hit like 3 sprints a week at like 100 yards, maybe that increases their max velocity, because from 40 to 70 meters, they're probably going to be hitting top end speed, and they haven't been hitting that in the games. So then it's like, okay, well, it just needs 3 to 5 sort of bites of their top speed when you're in season, and then out of season that might only look like 8 to 10 of those versus.
So these are the reps then.
Yeah, of
is
that
what
distance.
they would be getting.
Right.
And I don't know how you do a sprint or a non-technique drill for more than 1 rep with sprinting. You'd have to like some type of speed movement, like a.
So you're saying a non-technique drill.
Like if I'm running a 100-meter sprint, 100-yard sprint.
Okay.
Like
you're not done.
It's 1 rep.
Yeah, and then you're resting like 3 to 4 minutes.
And then I'll do another set of my 1 rep.
Yeah. So I was not clear on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like you're going out, you're going freaking sprint 100 meters, rest 20 seconds, sprint again.
Now, if
like
I'm doing an endurance workout.
Yeah, then it makes sense.
Okay. Like,
yeah.
Then you're probably not saying max speed. It's probably like, yo, I need you to do like an 18 to 20 second, whatever.
Yes.
Like repeatedly on this. How many reps can we get before you die out? Like you cash out on it.
Yes. How many reps can you hold 90% of your best?
Yeah.
On an endurance.
But then it's an endurance workout. It is not it's a speed workout, but biased towards endurance.
You're not going to be gaining the locomotion improvement that you would from like 3 bites of 100 meters all out.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that being said, you should be resting 3 to 4 minutes between goes.
And this is a question. I don't know how confident you necessarily will be in your answer. But I have to ask it because we're on this topic right now. Sprints are a max effort.
Yeah.
How do you determine intensity, and what intensity like within the working sets? Like I want 3 at, and also 2 like intention. Like I can intend to run as fast as possible and still only come in at like 90% of my best or something like that. Or like when I go to sprint, it's like I need you to finish within these times. And it like, because that's one of the things I struggle with wrapping my head around from an intensity standpoint, because I can't imagine sprinting not being like a max effort feel. So almost like constantly ascension and summit.
Yeah, yeah,
type of
yeah. I see what
performance
you're saying
levels with it.
versus. Okay, so I would argue. Now think about this in the in season scenario. Let's
Okay.
say you go. It's like, yo, I want 3 80-meter sprints or 3 100-meter sprints. That's it. We're only doing 3 of them. Yeah, and they probably wouldn't even be that long. Let's say they're 60 to 70, because I would argue you would get to top speed by 30 to 50 meters. Okay, so
And it's not about holding on. It's
no,
not
it's
about slowing down this. Like we're not. This is where we're not track athletes.
yeah, this is where it's like get there. Maybe you hold on a little bit and then you cool off. I would my goal would be in a volume phase, you would do more so like a good build up. So you would do like rhythm runs where it's at like, let's say if we're doing off season work, okay, and let's say we're focusing on max velocity, it's like, okay, I want three sprints where we go at the 20-yard mark, you're going 70%. At the 40-yard mark, you're going 85%. And then by the 60-yard mark, I want all out. And that's the rhythm that you try to build through.
So that's auto-regulated then, too, I assume,
for
right?
the
Like,
individual.
what does 60, 70, 80 feel like? And
until you get to that where you're going full throttle.
So then I'm going to take it, that's going to be a intermediate at lowest level athlete doing something like that. Because you can't tell.
No,
beginners
school
don't
kid,
know what it is.
Or young, they're just going to be going all out. The next version would be doing like, this is one that a lot of inexperienced runners would they would benefit from. Like, all right, let's do just stride it out. Think about a longer stride. Think about an upright posture, higher knees.
Could you do that with a wicked run too?
Yes. Yeah. You hit wicket runs or something similar to that, and you educate them on it. And you're like, okay, we want 2 to 4 sprints, striding or wicket runs, even to a point where like when you even get somebody on a hill, in theory, you can be like, look, I want like 75-80%. And it's easy on a hill to maintain that because kids don't want to go all out because they know the hill's going to murder them. So it's actually easier to temper down and make it more about tempo and rhythm than it is about.
All right. So you're talking about tempering things down. That made my head go to like velocity decrement and like putting a sled on someone.
Yes.
To purposely, like, you have to go slower, but I don't know if that necessarily decreases the intensity though.
That's a good question, because I think that the intensity, I mean, you could still say like, all right, I want to throttle back on this, and they might have greater recruitment with less intent. That would be okay. So that would be what my answer would be. I am actually comparing it to throwing. It's like if you throw a heavy implement, you move at a very high clip relative to your top speed. But you can do that at a lower speed, but the intent or the intent is lower and the speed will be a little bit lower, but you're still going to be recruiting at a high rate. So in the case of the sled,
or even a 1080 too, right?
Yeah. In any of the resisted sprinting, you could make the argument that like, all right, my intent is going to be, let's say 75%, but I'm actually recruiting at like 80-85.
Okay.
I don't know if there's research on this.
Well, I think that's why when I was trying to say, like, I don't know if you have an exact answer to this, is because I feel like this is a theoretical question more than like an exact science to it. And just in the case of like, there's a auto regulation in it, it's already like, it's not an exact, like, there's very much like user input, subjective input that goes into creating the result.
I would even argue I would like to look at a football team or somebody like that. Let's say they have track like the vests, and if we would track like this group of corners or skilled players run with a sled one week and then they run without a sled the next week, what happens for the following week? Because I actually think you could do like those sprint bites. Or fractional sets, whatever. There's so many trendy words right now that like
the branding is on point.
Yeah, it's crazy. That I think you might be able to see a difference if if you have, let's just say you grab a couple wide receivers, you got 6 wide receivers. 3 of them run on a sled, 3 of them run without the sled. Next week they flip or something like that. And then you just see if there's any difference in top speed during a game, average speed that they're running, and distance running.
And you put all that into a spreadsheet
and figure out.
Send the spreadsheet to the AI, tell it to analyze like patterns and trends they're noticing.
See if it sees anything.
And it takes and then you just put the subjective like sort of presentation on what the data says from there.
That's it.
Dude, need more GPS vests here. More people wear
we need way more. We need like 5 more.
Dude. All right. So that was a lot of talk around max top speed. Like, so you're training for top speed. There's definitely like an intensity component there of, a lot of rest. Mm-hmm. It seemed, you mentioned in a volume phase, 8 sets is pretty legit.
Yeah, that's a lot.
In season, as low as 3.
I would even, 2 to 3.
Yeah. So you would assume then everything in between the middle there then is like your volume type of thing. How does the distance play a factor then? Like, what's the difference between like 8 200s versus 8 60 meters?
I don't think, from what I've read, and I would email Ken Clark on this. I've never talked to him. I would love to talk to him, but I would.
Ken, if you're listening,
he's in Westchester, so we could.
That's an invitation to be on the podcast.
Come on the podcast. Yeah. So this would be a question I think he could answer. From what I've read, I don't believe that would be needed to be more than 100 yards. Like, I just don't see the reason for that, because if you can attain max velocity by anywhere from 40 to 80 meters, or 40 to 80 yards, whatever you want to work in, I don't think that you would need to run more than 100 yards for that specific adaptation.
Okay.
I don't think.
All right. So our other 2 within like how garage strength, what you can find in peak strength, especially with the new update with the speed workouts. That's
what I was going to say. And Legend played a large role in this.
Yeah.
Is like how we laid this out in peak strength.
Oh, I got to talk to Legend about this on a podcast, and it was great. Like, so insightful.
Yeah.
And I like this is like shout out to Legend. Like, I like how measured he is in responses too.
He's always like, well,
yeah,
there's no definitive answer. Yeah. Or if there is, he wants to package it as clearly as possible.
Yeah.
Nah. Whereas I'll just shit out my brain and then be like, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, well. Diarrhea of the mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, I said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's cool.
All right. So now we got to talk about change of direction and acceleration.
Okay.
One of the things I don't know if I struggle with this, but I always believe acceleration is a huge part of change of direction.
I agree.
Where I think the 2 differ is change of direction has a break in it, where acceleration, there's no break. It's all go. And one of the things where
unless you don't have to accelerate anymore.
Okay. And one of the things I think where acceleration is unique in change of direction is the angles you have to learn how to go faster in.
Wait, say that again.
And where change of direction is unique around acceleration is the angles, but also at the tempos I wanted to add too. So acceleration, you typically think 0 to max, right? Like, how fast can you get going? Where change of direction sometimes may be, how can you go from 10 to 30?
Yeah.
Or 30 to 60, but your hips have to shift this little bit of a way.
You have
like,
to cut just a
like
little.
You're running a post route.
Yeah,
versus or a dig versus a drag type of thing, and something of that nature, and how that is a change of direction, but the acceleration is different. It's not always like stop and go. Like, it's not always a juke cut or things of that nature. And then I think around back to our size of the field, like the open concept.
Yep.
With wrestling, is much shorter.
Way shorter.
So when it comes to speed, your only change of direction and acceleration, like top end speed, is like a non-existent thing. And locomotion is basically non-existent either too.
Yeah.
Your brain looks like it's thinking really hard on this.
So what would your question be? Because I don't think that you're based off.
I think I was just making a statement around acceleration and change of direction.
So I think
I've been writing a lot about it on the Twitter. So
when you pitched it to me there, it's it's funny because I think a lot of people think about change of direction in a shorter space,
Mm-hmm.
but you pitched it as like change of direction probably happens more frequently in a larger space.
Yeah.
Like,
And they're micro little
yeah, and it's
movements.
like, think about a linebacker like scraping, cutting, to opening their hips, getting downfield,
trying
and
to
then
get the angle on someone too.
right in a running back, like, and that's happening over like 10 to 15 yards. So like, I don't think that you painted that poorly. I think you painted pretty well. I would argue like on top of that, there is a subsequent need for tighter change of direction in all sports, but in most sports like wrestling, there's going to be a lot more. That would be like the transient speed.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say the next goal for us is to really dial in the quantity of that, because I do think wrestlers would benefit. Now, South Dakota State right now is doing some max effort speed sprints, more so at the beginning of their workout, on their sprint day, which they're actually doing preceding a lift. But I do think the way that I think that the change of direction stuff is, if you have someone do a max effort speed work and you have someone resistance training traditionally, like lifting weights,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're also doing their sports specific, like they're running a route tree, or they're playing basketball, or they're playing soccer, like consistently, they're playing lacrosse, dude, it's going to be hard to like that's just a pretty basic training structure that's going to be very effective, because they're going to have the strength to change direction. They're going to have the skill from practicing, let's say, that specified route tree. Then they're going to have that top end speed from doing the max velocity work. Like, it's pretty freaking good.
I guess one of my questions would be, how much does acceleration specific work then differ from change of direction specific work?
Oh, okay.
Like, would be another way to ask it too. Because like,
okay, so I would argue acceleration, to me, I would want to do more so resisted sprints. That's how I would train acceleration. More linear work. Now, I would argue change of direction. I think I would train a lot of plyometrics and sprints with, like, where you throw up a ball and it's like an intentional, not puzzle, but course.
It makes you go.
Yeah, course that you have
bit
to run
funky.
through. So I would argue then the change of direction, you'd be like, all right, how much plyometric work are they doing on athlete day? And then also look at, like, well, how well, if they run a 5-10-5, what's their 5-10-5 compared to their 40, compared to their position, because you should be able to see a pretty consistent ratio there.
Yeah.
Dude, if it's a football player.
I have my head your stuff too. Like, I'm all over the place right now. I'm thinking of like 50 different possibilities of stuff.
But that's where, dude, to me, that question is zero. That has zero difference between, like, what should I bench versus incline bench versus military press, or what should I squat versus clean versus power clean? What should I run a 40 versus a shuttle?
That's why there's all the tests of peak strength.
Yeah, versus a vertical. All of those things should have some breakdown for the coach to look at.
So I asked that question to you around, like, acceleration. Like, so there's 0 to go, right?
Yep.
But we were talking earlier about, like, a tempo run, which in itself is a form of acceleration.
Yeah, it is. It's a good rhythmic.
But, like, it's all right. And that type of acceleration I would see applying to, like, football, like a wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can change tempos
as you enter,
in a way to, like, deceive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a deception mechanism to, like, think you're not going as fast, or think you're going faster, to then, like, put on the brakes real quick.
Yeah, it's like you look like you're about to accelerate and then you slam on the brakes, turn.
So, like, but that's a means of acceleration. It's not all from, like, hand on the ground, stop, go, like, track type of acceleration.
Yeah.
And then there's also, like, the change of direction we were talking about, like running a route. And then my head started going to, like, well, isn't a DN running the corner a change of direction specific skill as well too, like when they're running the circle.
Yes.
Because if all they can do is run forward, like they'll just keep getting bigger and bigger tackles to just pancake you, like if you're not strong enough. Like so yeah, that's just where my head was at. Speed actually gets super complicated when you step outside of the track lanes.
Jeez. I think that's the other thing is
and
like,
by that I mean open skill sports versus closed skill sports. Like,
yeah, and it's that's actually what makes track so fun is like, and it's like this across the board with even distance running is like, okay, if this guy can do this in training, he'll probably do this. If this guy can run this, or if this guy can do this, then we know that this is going to happen. And you can predict quite well what will
the
happen.
closed system gives you very tangible, quantitative stuff to do it, where in the open skilled sport, the parameters come off a little bit more, there's more means to get results.
Right. And then you look at like, okay, you look at the DN position, you look at someone like, look at how it was, Reggie White, big, huge monster,
super strong.
Yeah. Stupid strong, and would just manhandle everyone. Literally just like toss you around like you were a ragdoll. That's one prototype D end. Then you have someone like Lawrence Taylor, a little different, more of a speed rusher. Then you get Dwight Freeney, clear speed rusher. Now, the difference here is that Dwight Freeney also had a crazy bull rush because he was so ungodly strong. Now
he's built like a weightlifter. He's basically built like a 109, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, then you look at the modern D end is like, all right, let's build these guys that are 260 to 275. They're absurdly strong, back squatting 600 pounds for reps, but absurdly fast. Because the thing is, it's sort of taking it and it's combining like the Reggie White mixed with the Dwight Freeney to then create someone, because you don't want a traditional speed rusher to be so small that they get hit or they get smacked.
Yeah, the 300-pounder on the other side can
just murders them. Versus, you also don't want them so big that they're too slow. So it's like, I think that's the interesting part about the open skilled stuff right now is like, you see there's a very fine gray area that it's like a really clear gray area that you have to be like, okay, well, this guy's lacking speed or this guy's lacking strength. And you try to increase their strength without taking away from their speed and vice versa. And that's where you just got to play that game.
Yeah. Well, speed training, change of direction, acceleration, top end speed, max speed.
Yeah.
You got to develop the three qualities based off the sporting needs or the athlete need.
Yep.
Which one you prioritize. Volume on a training day is dependent on in season, out of season.
Yep.
What part of the phase you're in as well too, within it too. And if you don't want to think about any of that, go sign up for Peak Strength.
Yeah. If you go to the new Peak Strength layout has this stuff spoon feeding you like what you need to do based off your specific sport.
I got an audience question.
Okay.
This comes from the Reddit. Obi-Wan Coyote.
All right.
Yeah. Wonder if he's fighting the windmills.
He sometimes is in YouTube lives too.
Is he?
Yeah.
Can you get away with not doing back squat if you only had time for one squat variation? So if you only have time to lift with a kid once or twice a week, can you get away with not doing back squats? One girl does only single leg front squats at about half body weight. The others are doing only front squats. Kids range from 8 to 14. They started with lunges, then body weight single leg squats, then 2-leg goblet squats to get used to weight, then jumping single leg squats, and switching back and forth between goblet, single leg, and holding a dumbbell in opposite hand. The kids have now moved to front squats to push more weight and to build upper thoracic strength. The one girl who is doing single leg front squats is because of a non-sports related injury, causing her to have issues with bilateral squats. Is it better to just keep working front squats and then single leg front squats, or mix in back squat? I'm wondering if I'm doing them a disservice by not pushing back squats. I resisted doing so because their form is really good and they understand the lifts. Their form is much worse on back squat, and I find myself using a lot of training time teaching the lift and doing technique corrections. Like, does a young athlete actually need the back squat?
Jeez, that's a big.
It's on Reddit though. Like it was kind of open, like for people to go and like
that's true.
Type
that's
up.
Fair. My argument, because he mentioned they mentioned the good movement patterns of a front squat. If they're front squatting well, I don't think you need to. I think there will be a point where, let's say you get them, let's just say, I don't know, some crazy number, like they front squat 300 pounds. And it's like, all right, now maybe they should be plenty strong enough to introduce a back squat. And then you might see the front squat, because they're so effective with it, blow up because of that. I don't think you need to, though. I remember, this is a little anecdote. I remember back in the day when Akayev and Dmitry Klokov were on the come up, they did like a mini documentary on what they eat and how they were raised. And Klokov's system from his dad, who was a world champion as well, he didn't back squat for like 5 years or 6 years, something like that. He just front squatted. So like, that's even stuff that DJ and I have been doing with some of our athletes, and with even Lincoln has been like, yo, let's get them the front squat as heavy as possible. So in this case, like, I think you're okay.
Well, especially, I would agree, especially at the age.
Yeah.
Like, they're not old enough to get seriously strong yet.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
8 to 14's around like when you can start like getting
pushing.
Strong.
Yeah.
Like, but like 8, 9, 10, like,
yeah, just get the movement.
And if they move, like, all right,
dude, and guess what?
You get a more quad development.
Front squat's a freaking brutal lift. So like, if you get these kids as 11 and 12-year-olds to just engage with the front squat,
and you're probably less likely to get injured too.
Yeah.
Like, because kids with the back squat, like needing the
dumping,
hoodie or the just not knowing how to brace yet. Where the front squat, at least if you don't brace, like the worst that could possibly happen is it falls on their knees. But usually that doesn't happen.
Won't even happen.
Where the back squat, you'll see kids let it roll over their neck if they're horrendous at it,
or fold into an accordion.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, it's bad.
You're good with the front squat, is what I'm hearing there.
Yes, front squat all day, every day.
All day, every day. Nothing else. That's all you need.
And that's
in this life of
get
sin.
faster.
It's me and my front squat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. And me.
Yeah. All right. That's it, Dane.
Head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength today if you want to increase your speed, and you should always be front squatting. Until next time, peace.